Edna Strow, my grandmother and one of my greatest inspirations, is a first-generation American.
They were both born in Ireland, and my dad came over here on his own because he thought he'd come and see if there was work here, because there wasn't a lot of work in Ireland. And he had just gone through a training for building homes, and he thought this would be a good place to come. So when he got here, well, I don't know, wasn't that great because people didn't have that much money as he thought they did. But anyway, my mother came over a couple years later, and she brought 2 children with her on the boat, which was a job. She fell down the stairs on the boat, or the ship, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
She was famous for falling downstairs. My oldest brother was called John Wesley Robinson. My younger brother was James Alfred Robinson. I had a sister, Dorothy Maud Robinson. Maud was the maiden name of my mother. Her name was May. I don't know if she had a middle name or not.
What happened?
I think she got pneumonia, and my dad came in, and he had the flu. She ended up getting flu on top of pneumonia, and she died.
How old was she?
Oh, less than a year old.
Stories of my grandparents' family life and all of the different hardships that they went through, and it really inspired me and taught me how important family life is. And I think I do take pride in my family history and how they were able to get through a lot of really hard times, and it inspires me to work hard and know that I can get through anything because of the things that they were able to overcome. And my experiences aren't nearly as hard as what theirs were, so.
Detroit was all right. I was only a kid, so a lot of people might not have thought it was, but everything was fine with me. I had friends to play with, and a place to run over 3 blocks away to ice skate every winter, which I loved doing. Played baseball on the road. Chased the iceman when he'd go to the door. Us kids would run and grab some ice out of the back of the truck. And that was our exciting day. Yeah, his name was John Wesley, and he was drafted into the service when the war first started. He was assistant manager of an A&P store and was a little disappointed that he had to leave, but you didn't have a choice. If you're drafted, you're drafted. And he did real well. He got up to be a lieutenant, and he was pretty smart, and he had a good job in the office in California, so he never got sent overseas at all. He was very fortunate. I was working across the street from Sears in Cunningham's, waiting on counters, soda fountain and all that stuff, and Don would come in there from Sears. He was working in the storage room or something, and he came over there, and I guess he liked me. He asked me to go out, and when I went out with him, he asked me to go steady, and I went with him from then on until I married him.
My grandma and grandpa got married in 1947. They enjoyed over 60 years of marriage together before my grandpa passed away in 2012. I think my favorite story that my grandparents ever talked to me about was the story of how they met, because it's so cute, and I don't know, you could really tell that they loved each other, and they kind of taught me what love really means and what it is, and if you just paid attention to how they treated each other, they just kind of radiated kindness and patience.
Well, my first phone The first time I called anybody, I called home and my dad answered. And I hardly knew who he was because all I could hear was an Irish brogue, and I don't hear that at home for some strange reason.
Whenever we went blueberry picking with my grandma and grandpa, it was always a really good time because my grandpa would take the handle of the bucket and put it through his belt loop and strap it on so that he had two hands for picking, although in reality it was just like one hand for picking and putting in the bucket and the other hand for picking and eating.
Grandpa was always the first to step up to help. He was so full of love, and it was just in his nature to put others first, even if it meant teaching my grandma to drive.
Well, that was kind of a scary thing. I was driving on, doing pretty good, and we got into a crowd of people that were going to a cider mill. And I had to stop and start and stop and start, and I was very nervous because I wasn't very good at doing that yet, you know.
Did you have to have a stick shift?
Did I what?
Did the car have a stick shift or something?
Yeah, it had a stick shift. You had to keep shifting the thing.
Yeah.
Going up this hill, it was a hill or two. Oh, that was a shaky time that time. I was sure glad to get up there, and when we got up to the top of the hill and away from the other cars, I got out of the car and told him, "You drive."
How my grandpa always had a pack of Tic Tacs in his front pocket, and he earned the name Grandpa Tic Tac because he always gave us a Tic Tac whenever we came around or whatever, and so that was super great.
Family storytelling represents one narrative form that plays a role in the construction of identity, and family is one of the first places where people get a sense of who they are. These legacies may be especially important to emerging adults as they move closer to developing their own identities as adults.
Oh, that was exciting. It was black and white. We didn't get color at first, and then when we got colored, we were all excited about that.
Do you remember the first TV show you watched?
Oh, I'm not really sure. I used to listen to Sky King on the radio before TV came. Maybe that's what his name was. Well, he was very fortunate because it came at a good time for him. They drafted him, and he was back in about 6 months because the war went over.
Oh, okay.
So that was very fortunate for us.
I learned so much of who I am from my grandparents, and they taught me to be a better person and to strive to be a better person all the time, and how to treat others with kindness. And their stories kind of gave me a sense of my identity and where I came from and how blessed I am to be a part of this family, and without these I would definitely be lost.
Treat your husband in the way you would like him to treat you. Find a good church and be true to it. Go all the time and work there and do everything you can to help.
Social workers working with the elderly can help empower them by helping them tell their stories and prove that they have dignity and worth in their stories and their wisdom, and that their stories have a lot of significance. And I think empowering the elderly is something that we don't do very well in our society. We just tend to brush them aside a lot. And I think that's something that should change because the elderly have a lot of wisdom, and I think we should take note of their wisdom and their years of experience because we can learn a lot from it. And social workers can definitely help with this by showing how their stories have impacted youth.
We pass on what we consider to be valuable in our world, knowing that this might be rejected, and indeed hoping that children will take what we give them and change it for the better.